in the name of personal injury law.
Unfortunately, semi-truck accidents often result in serious and life-altering injuries that require medical care and treatment. So today we're going to talk with Steve Sinas, a personal injury attorney at the Sinas Dramus Law Firm, to tell us about how the Michigan no-fault law works with respect to these very serious semi-truck auto accidents.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us, how does the Michigan no-fault law apply in a semi-truck accident situation?
So semi-truck accident cases are unique cases for a lot of different reasons. But one thing people should understand who are injured in these accidents is that the Michigan no-fault law governs many of their rights that they have to pursue. And you can't really handle one of these cases without fully appreciating and applying the Michigan no-fault law in all respects. So getting into it a little bit further, the reason why the no-fault law applies is that it's the law that governs the claims people have for any type of injury they sustain arising out of the use of a motor vehicle. And the semi-truck in a particular accident is always going to be a motor vehicle. So the no-fault law is then applicable, and it determines the person's rights for their no-fault PIP benefits and also their rights against the at-fault semi-truck driver and the company involved.
So what are the PIP benefits, and are they available to the semi-truck accident cases?
Yes, so no-fault PIP benefits are these unique benefits people can pursue under the Michigan No-Fault Act. They're called first-party benefits, and if you're injured in a semi-truck accident, you can pursue these benefits. And actually, the person who's at fault for the semi-truck accident can pursue these benefits. That's why they're called no-fault benefits. So there are some categories of people who can be disqualified from no-fault PIP benefits. Like if you own a vehicle that you're using and it's uninsured, you can be disqualified. If you're using a stolen vehicle at the time of the semi-truck accident, you can be disqualified from no-fault PIP benefits. But the issue of fault doesn't determine whether or not those benefits are payable. If you're in an accident, semi-truck accident, you're going to get no-fault PIP benefits unless you're not disqualified.
And semi-truck accidents have to be really horrific. Like, you're going to have a lot of medical treatments going to be needed, right?
Right, and that's why you have to first understand no-fault PIP benefits. So let me quickly summarize those. There are four main no-fault PIP benefits. One is the survivor's loss benefit, which applies in cases involving death. But if you survive a crash, you have these other three benefits. One is known as the work loss benefit, which covers your loss of income from work you would have performed if you were not injured. So if you're injured in a semi-truck accident, you can pursue work loss through your no-fault coverage, which, by the way, these no-fault PIP benefits are payable by your own insurance company typically. There's some exceptions to that rule, but most of the time you're going to turn to your own insurance company. So if you can't work, you can pursue loss of income for up to 3 years, and it's capped at 85% of your gross income. And there's also about a $6,000 monthly max. So if you can't work because you're injured as a result of a negligent semi-truck driver, your first place to stop for income loss is going to be with your own insurance company for work loss benefits. And that's a no-fault PIP benefit. Another no-fault PIP benefit is for household services you can't perform on your own, known as a replacement service. So if you can't mow your yard or clean your kitchen or things of that nature and you need somebody else to do it, you can have coverage for up to $20 a day for 3 years to pay people to do those services for you. But the main hallmark of the no-fault system is known as the allowable expense benefit. So to your point, if you're catastrophically injured in a semi-truck accident, you're going to need a lot of care and treatment. And the allowable expense benefit says that you can claim whatever is reasonably necessary for your care, recovery, or rehabilitation of your injuries. So when I'm talking to somebody who's just been severely injured in a semi-truck accident, I'm first telling them about this allowable expense benefit because it can cover so much, not just the medical treatment in the hospital, but the rehab services, the care at home, home modifications, vehicle accommodations, home accessibility issues can be paid for. So there's all types of resources that can be there for those who are catastrophically injured in a semi-truck accident through the allowable expense benefit. But I just want to add that the 2019 reforms to the no-fault law allows people to buy less than lifetime coverage for allowable expense benefits. So there's this issue now where we have to look into people's insurance coverage to determine whether or not they've limited their allowable expense benefit coverage or do they have lifetime. And that's a big issue in a semi-truck accident case.
Right, and so with the new law where it's limiting potentially the PIP benefits, they have to then turn to somebody else to get the coverage. So tell us how the Michigan no-fault law works in those negligent semi-truck cases.
That's right. And so I started with the no-fault PIP benefits because you have to understand those first. But because the new law allows us to limit our medical expense coverage, say you bought a $50,000 amount of allowable expense coverage, or $250,000, or you opted out, which some people can do. If you're not covered, you can pursue those allowable expenses from the at-fault semi-truck driver or the company involved. And so when you look at the situation of somebody who doesn't have coverage through the no-fault system or enough coverage, they then pursue essentially their no-fault benefits from the semi-truck company. And that's what requires attorneys handling these cases to really appreciate the nuances of the no-fault law, because it's those nuances that guides what they can actually claim for medical expenses in the negligence case against the semi-truck driver and company involved.
Can you explain how the pain and suffering aspect works in a Michigan no-fault case when it's a semi-truck accident?
Yeah, and so it's not just no-fault PIP benefits that are governed by the no-fault law. The no-fault law actually dictates the rules that apply to the damages that you pursue in the negligence case. So when a person is severely injured as a result of a negligent semi-truck driver, they can pursue pain and suffering damages, but the no-fault law says they can only do so if they've been seriously injured. Death is one itemized serious injury under the no-fault law, but if you survive, you either have to show that you have a permanent serious disfigurement, which is like a scar or a serious burn or an amputation, or you have to have a serious impairment of body function. And then there's a very particular test that applies to how the serious impairment of body function standard is interpreted by the courts. And this is just another example of where if you're injured in a semi-truck accident, you need to make sure that your lawyer not just knows negligence law, but also the no-fault law and the unique standards that apply, such as the serious injury rule, so that your case can be properly worked up. Because if you can't pass the serious injury rule, you don't get pain and suffering damages from the at-fault semi-truck driver. There's just no ability to recover those damages.
And how does the Michigan no-fault law play into the lost income that maybe the injured accident victim from a semi-truck accident has?
So you may remember I said that you had 3 years of work loss benefits, right, capped at 85% of your gross income, subject to a $6,000 cap. That's all on the no-fault side. Well, what if you have income loss over and above that?
Beyond 3 years, right?
Right, beyond 3 years or beyond the $6,000 cap. That's income loss you can pursue against the at-fault semi-truck driver. But that's a tort damage that's pursued in the negligence case.
And anything more about medical expense claims and how that plays into a semi-truck accident case?
It's now more important than ever that people who are injured in motor vehicle accidents involving a semi-truck look at their allowable expense coverage and understand what their coverage is so they can pursue their care. But then also make sure that they get an attorney who can really deal with the nuances that are there under the law that govern their right to pursue their uncovered medical expenses from the semi-truck driver. And this is a new feature of the no-fault law. And so it's not just about finding an attorney who can handle semi-truck cases, it's one who can handle semi-truck cases and knows all about the no-fault law. That's essential for people who are looking for legal representation.
And what about before an accident? What can our viewers do to help themselves down the road if they ever have an accident like this?
Be safe, drive defensively, and watch out for semi-trucks. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve.
In the Name of Personal Injury Law is brought to you by the Sinas Law Firm.